thanks again for everybody's flexibility in switching this from in-person to virtual. I'm going to go ahead and promote Diane with the League of Women Voters. Diane's the president of the league, and maybe give her a minute to talk about what's happening with the league these days. So let me promote Diane. Diane, good morning. And bear with me because I'm a bit of a techno dunce, so I'm doing my best here.
Okay, and well, hey, I am struggling too, so I'm off now.
Hey, Diane, good morning. For those who don't know Diane, she's the president of the League of Women Voters Dallas. Diane, do you want to, before we start, do you want to give everybody who's watching a quick update on what y'all are doing?
We are sure happy to. We have a team of members and volunteers that are crazy busy registering voters and getting out the vote and educating them about the changes that have occurred from the past legislature, among other things. I want to point out three points, and I'll repeat it again if I have a chance later. We have Vote 411, which is the digital voter guides, where you can find your answers to the various candidates. That's poorly said. You can find the answers the various candidates have provided to the questions that we have in our voter guide. This is the digital sister of our printed guide. You can find the printed guides at the Dallas Public Library, among other places. Those all will be going live next week, I believe. Okay. Early voting starts on Valentine's Day. And so use Valentine's Day to show your love of democracy. There is a listing on Dallas County Elections website for the early voting locations. I haven't checked the map yet, but I'm assuming the map is going to be live soon too. It may not go live actually until early voting starts. Excuse me. And the last item I wanted to say is that if you're doing a ballot by mail, the deadline for that application is February 18th. Don't wait for the post office to deliver your thing overnight. Get your application in early. And when you do your application, the new rule this year is to add a driver's license number. And we are recommending that you also put the last 4 digits of your Social Security. Thank you. Thank you all for voting.
Thanks, Diane, very much. Thanks for that important message from the league. All right, we are now a little bit after 12, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I have to do a couple of technical things, which is to remove Diane and Ken as our panelists. So let me do that, and then I will start promoting all of our candidates. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Jeff Kittner with the North Dallas Chamber of Commerce. We are pleased today to be hosting this candidate forum in a virtual format due to the extreme weather. Thanks again for everybody's flexibility in that regard. We are co-hosting this forum in conjunction with our partners from the League of Women Voters Dallas, as well as the North Texas Commission. And I see our good friend Chris Wallace has joined us as well too. So with that, I'm going to start promoting candidates and demoting others, and we will get started. Okay, I promoted Derrik Gay and have promoted Jan McDowell, and I have promoted Kathy. All right, and so we should have everybody. At this point, I will start demoting others, and I'll turn it over to Lee Kleinman, who was our moderator. So thanks everyone for being here today. And Lee, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you all for joining us today for this very important forum for the candidates in the Democrat primary for District Congressional District 24. This is obviously an important election, as many are. What's interesting here is, of course, that we recently had redistricting, and so hopefully some of the candidates will address that. I was surprised to wake up one morning and find out I was no longer in Colin Allred's district. Definitely love to hear some things about that. I'd like to just go over a couple of the general rules of the forum that we'll try to abide to. We're going to work in ballot order sequence, asking the first candidate on the opening statements, candidate 1 to make the first statement, then candidate 2, then candidate 3. When we start going to questions, Jeff Kittner's got this convoluted methodology of rotating through candidates. We'll try to go in order so that each candidate has opportunity to be the first person to answer questions. I'll try to keep up with that as best I can. Initially, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Following the opening statement, I'll ask questions of the candidates, and candidates will have 1 minute to respond to each question. The League of Women Voters will be keeping time during the candidate remarks and will provide cards to update the remaining time as needed. Also, after we ask a handful of questions, we'll give the audience an opportunity to have their questions asked. Audience questions may be posted to the candidates in order to be considered. Because this forum is virtual, audience members should post their candidates in the chat box, and Jeff Kittner will be monitoring that, or just sending them to Jeff, and we'll try to monitor them there as well. So we'll give participants or give the audience an opportunity to ask questions as well. With that being said, we're ready to get started. We have 3 candidates that I think you will have the benefit of meeting. We'll go in candidate order as the ballot is. So that would start with Kathy Fragnoli, then Derrik Gay, then Jan McDowell. So let's start with opening statements. Kathy, would you like to start us off?
Sure, thank you, Lee. And I want to thank you guys for the invitation and quickly switching over to a Zoom format. When you predicted correctly that the cold weather was going to continue, I'm happy to be joined by 2 qualified candidates. So my name's Kathy Fragnoli. I've been in Texas since 1979. I moved here after law school. I worked as a lawyer for American Airlines for 12 years. After that, I started my own business in 1994 called the Resolution Group, and we provide mediation services all over the country to government agencies and individuals. I personally have mediated about 3,000 cases, and my clients include the Veterans Administration, NFL, LA Police Department, Fort Worth Police Department, and many other fairly high-level clients with tough situations. I'm the author of a book called Peace at Work, and I, excuse me, was voted as one of the best lawyers in Dallas last year in the field of conflict resolution. I have never run for office before. I decided to run because I think what we have is not a civil war brewing in this country, but an uncivil war. I think people have forgotten how to talk to one another. And I think my skills that I've developed for the last 27 years would be helpful in that regard. I quickly joined the Problem Solvers Caucus if I was elected. There's only 48 people on there out of over 400. And I think plenty more should join and try to talk to each other in a way that's respectful. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. The next candidate we have is Derrik Gay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to everyone and for joining today. So I'm Derrik Gay. After our country was attacked on 9/11, I signed up to join the Marines on a ROTC scholarship and became the first in my family to graduate from college. Spent 13 years total in the Marines in a career that took me to Iraq, throughout Asia. And then when I went to the reserves, I activated for Hurricane Harvey relief when that hit Houston. But I got off active duty to go to Northwestern. I went to both law and business school there. And after 3 cold winters in Chicago, my wife told me we were moving back to Dallas. She's a SMU grad, so we came back here. I stayed in the reserves until I was medically discharged in 2020. For me, why I got into this race was really the attack on January 6th. Watching the attack on that Capitol that day as a Marine who took an oath to defend the Constitution, I was just appalled to see my representative, Beth Van Dyne, still vote to overturn a free and fair election and just fail to put country over party when her country really needed her to do so. So she had an opportunity to bring the country together. Instead, she doubled down on overturning the electors in Pennsylvania and just the fear-mongering divisive politics that she's been known for. So that's when I decided to get into this race. I'm committed to building a better future for the working families in this district. We have an incredible economy here in North Texas, and I want that to continue, but I also want to bring more people along in that growth. I've previously worked a night shift in a warehouse in South Dallas. I've seen a lot of families that are struggling to make ends meet. And the reason they're on night shift is because they also have a daytime job. It shouldn't be that hard for people to succeed in this economy. And I think as we emerge from this pandemic, we have an opportunity to build a better economy that works for all. It brings more people along, and that addresses income inequality, which has just been a huge issue that's grown over the last decade. So excited about the opportunity and just really appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone today as well.
Well, thank you, Derrik. And the next candidate we have is Jan McDowell.
Hi, thank you to the North Dallas Chamber and the League of Women Voters. I'm Jan McDowell, candidate for Congress in District 24. I've lived in the North Texas area since I was 8 years old, growing up in Richardson and now living in Carrollton for the past 40 plus years. I know this area and I'll be proud to represent it in Washington. I'm a retired CPA. Looking at budgeting and common sense financial decisions are things I do. Someone needs to be doing that in Washington. I'm convinced that everyone will benefit when everyone can participate and have an opportunity to succeed in America. What I don't want to be a description of life in America is the title of a Sarah Smarsh book, Working Hard and Being Broke in the Richest Country on Earth. We can do better. I proudly agree with the Dallas Morning News' assessment of me. They said that I proposed vaccine mandates and described climate change as a house on fire emergency. They said it like those were bad things, but I'd say they're spot on. I'm the progressive candidate in this race. That doesn't mean confrontational or obnoxious. It does mean that I'll be laser focused on saving our democracy and saving our planet. Both are existential crises, and everything else needs to come after we ensure that both of those are secured. As the candidate who came within 3 points of winning this seat in 2018, I've been building name recognition, goodwill, and relationships all across the district for several years. When there's so much on the line, I'm the candidate who gives us the best potential to flip this seat. I'd love to earn your support and your vote. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jan, and thank you all candidates for introducing yourself. The next stage is we will start asking questions, and we will ask each candidate to answer each question with 1 minute, and I will be sorting the order so that we maybe try to be fair. So let me start with the first question, and we will start out with Derrik Gay as answering it first, but the other candidates will have an opportunity. The North Dallas Chamber of Commerce has a long history with transportation and infrastructure, including the development of the North Dallas Tollway and the repeal of the Wright Amendment. If elected, what do you view as the priority items for federal transportation and infrastructure improvements? Derrik, do you want to start us out?
Yes, thank you for that question, Lee. I think the infrastructure law that passed was so crucial for an area that, in North Texas, it is growing so rapidly. That includes the DFW airport, which is a huge, engine for economic growth here, and just has, tremendous needs as one of the busiest airports really in the world. So I think, it's for the first time in 20 years this year, we're going to invest more in our infrastructure than China. And to be competitive in a global economy, we need to do that. So we're still, it's still not enough money and investment. We need to build on infrastructure. It's been lagging for years and something that we've not invested in. I know in the district, at least in the old lines, there was 56 bridges that were rated poor. I'm sure you saw the bridge collapse in Pittsburgh. We need to invest in our infrastructure, and we need to rebuild because that's ultimately what is going to make us competitive economically and provide for growth there. So I'm committed to that. We need to pass more money for infrastructure spending, and we need to invest in that.
Great. Thank you, Derrik. The next candidate, Jan, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. A couple of things. Building retrofits are a huge way that federal dollars from the infrastructure plan can be invested locally and help municipal governments to save the costs that they would need and thus be more competitive going forward. Everything that can help our climate change emergency is a huge benefit to our area. Also, I'm a big fan of DART. I ride the train whenever possible. And the new Silver Line that's now under construction, I attended many of the community meetings that they had in the communities all along that route, which traverses a good chunk of District 24, headed to DFW Airport, across Capel and Carrollton and Plano, to connect our area. So those are areas that I think that federal infrastructure dollars, which Beth Van Dyne, by the way, voted against, would be the way to go.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. And now we'll hear from Kathy on this topic.
Yeah, Jan's right about whoever makes it past the primary, our opponent is taking credit for the infrastructure money coming into Texas, but voted against it, which is unfortunate. When I worked at American Airlines as a lawyer, I was in the corporate real estate program for a while, many years trying to get hangars built, runway construction, and things that the airlines needed as a group. It was very difficult. We operated on a shoestring because it took at that time contributions from the airlines who were not profitable to build. So it's important that we have a private and public partnership to build infrastructure, and we're headed in the right direction for that. I still would like to see more education on public transportation and increase it. People still don't know how to get on the train to get from the airport downtown, as an example. I think back to basics is important, fix our roads, and we're on the way to do that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
A quick question. The yellow card, how many seconds are left when the yellow comes up?
15 seconds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the next question is, would you have voted in favor of the Build Back Better Act? And if so, how do you think those funds should be distributed in North Texas and across Congressional District 24? And if I may add a little bit to this question, do you think the control of the funding should be state versus local? Should it be discretionary on the part of the state or formula funding? And what is the role of the North Central Texas Council of Governments in that funding? So kind of went down a little rabbit hole there, but the main thing is your view on the Build Back Better Act and how the funds should be distributed. So the first person that will have answer that question will be Jan McDowell.
Absolutely, I would have been an enthusiastic yes vote for the Build Back Better bill. And that would have been at whatever level of funding was on the table at the time. It keeps getting whittled back and whittled back and whittled back. But, I would take whatever we can get and vote yes. As far as, I think one of the main things, this isn't a rush bill like the family relief program earlier in the pandemic. They need to take the time in Congress to get it right with monitoring and guidelines for how the money can be spent and accountability on how it's spent. I'd be a little bit hesitant to put the state of Texas in control. I think that the funds need to go to infrastructure, childcare, pre-K, all of the various things, healthcare costs, all the things that are needed to make life better in our area.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry, Kathy, you're up.
No.
Thank you. Mute.
Yeah, the Build Back Better Act, of course, is held up again in Congress. Part of the problem with it is that there are so many things built into it that don't match one another. We've got pre-K and drug negotiations in with really complex tax issues. And I wish we had broken it into smaller packages so that one can't torpedo others. I think any money should be spent with a private-public consortium effort locally. I always believe in private-public together to solve problems. Neither have all the answers. The negotiations for drugs is important to me in that bill, and I'm sorry it is being held up. Also, the tax breaks for people with $80,000 and write-offs is something I think people are welcoming in other states, maybe not so much here. But again, breaking it into smaller packages, I think would have been a better idea. I hope we can do it in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. Derrik?
Yeah, I share the same sentiment as Kathy on that, and that I think a lot of the messaging has been lost. It's been held up in the Senate. There's a lot of great things in the Build Back Better, but how everything was grouped together, I think strategically, I would have liked to see it stripped out. And now that we know it's not going to pass the Senate, let's put it to vote on every on the popular agenda that's in there. You know, something like universal pre-K, which I'm fully supportive of. That's really going to help working families in this district. You know, over $200 billion is allocated for that in the Build Back Better plan over 10 years, and that's going to have a serve 5 million children and save families on average $13,000, and just have a boost to the GDP of at least 28.6 billion. So I think it's going to have a huge impact if something like that was stripped out. So I do believe as well that, you know, we need to coordinate with our state and local leaders, the chambers of commerce, and see where the best needs are for these federal funds for the programs in Build Back Better. We need to have that partnership, and we need to invest in our economy, in our working families, in our infrastructure and everything. There's just a lot of opportunity, I think, to do better than we are doing.
Great. Thank you very much, all candidates, for the answers to that very important question. The next question is, voter rights have been significantly debated topic in Congress recently. What are your positions on voter rights and voter access bills being discussed at the federal level? And we'll start with Kathy on this question.
I think voter rights are really important, especially in Texas right now. I mean, local governments our registrars are in some counties turning back 40% of the applications for absentee voting. I moved into the exact district that I vote in, and it took me 4 phone calls and 2 hours to try to get my address changed. Pre-clearance of gerrymandered districts, I think, is very important. We used to have it and stopped after the last census. So I think pre-clearance would put a referee in the formula and prevent people feeling like they're being disfranchised, because we know in many jurisdictions in Texas they are. Voter rights should be back to basics. Again, like many other things, people should not lose hope in our voting system. We tell other countries how to set up their democracies. So I hope we can do better on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Derrik?
Yeah, you know, first and foremost, let's put an end to partisan gerrymandering. It's just undemocratic. You know, it's no surprise that, you know, with the advanced technology that we have that is being used when we draw these lines, when the legislature draws the lines, that you have the near elimination of swing districts. So when you go away from competitive districts, when representatives are able to choose who can vote for them, you know, you go to the further extremes, because now, you know, someone, you know, on the far right or the far left, like they only have to appeal to their base, and the rest of the constituents, you know, don't have a voice in that. So we need to have competitive districts. We need to have bipartisan solutions to solve our complex problems that we face as a country. And, you know, first and foremost, we need to pass the Voting Rights Act. We need to, you know, put an end to partisan gerrymandering. We need to make it easier to vote. That should be the goal of every person in this country is to make it easier to vote. How can we do that? Instead of these restrictive measures to make people jump through loops, we talk about mail-in ballots where you need to put your driver's license and social security number on there, because if you registered on one, 30 years ago and you apply with another number, they're going to reject it. So it's just not, that's not how we should function as a democracy.
Thank you, Derrik. Jan?
Yes, well, I agree with everything that the others have said as far as gerrymandering and free clearance. The other thing that I would point out is the whole idea of an election is to figure out who the majority of the people want. And if people vote illegally, that skews the result, and we don't want that. The good news is that hardly happens. It's a minuscule number of cases. But what also skews the result is if there are people who want to vote who don't get to vote. And that is a major issue with skewing the results. And that's happening at a burgeoning rate of instances. So that's where I think we need to focus with the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the For the People Act, all the things that make it possible for everybody to vote so we get an accurate count of what all the people think.
Great. Well, thank you very much for y'all's answers on these questions. I wanted to mention to the candidates that we have almost 50 people on this forum today. So thank you very much for turning out interested folks on what the future of this position is. I have a question from the audience that I think they would like to hear addressed. And that is, provide more specifics on how you differentiate yourself from the other candidates in the primary and how you will position yourself in the general election to ensure success in that race. And the first person we're going to for that question is Derrik Gay.
Well, thank you for that question. First and foremost, I respect, both of my opponents in the primary. We're all proud Democrats here, and I'm quite confident that none of them would vote to overturn a free and fair election like our current representatives did. So as far as me, I'm someone who's dedicated my life to service through the Marine Corps, through as much as I can do and be involved in the community, and that's what brought me into this race, really the attack on January 6th, like I mentioned. So I want to continue to serve and protect democracy. I think there's a lot on the ballot in 2022. And I believe that, I can really hold Beth Van Duyne accountable for her vote to overturn a free and fair election, and also for what she hasn't done for this district, and have a strong economic message to how we're going to help working families and how we're going to build this economy in a way that works for all. So that's what I'm, focused on, trying to, really build a broad coalition and really hold Beth Van Duyne accountable what she's done and present a bright future for what this district can be. I think the best leaders I ever had relied on hope and optimism and a vision for the future, not fear mongering that we see from our current representative.
Thank you, Derrik. Jan McDowell, would you answer, please?
Yes, I am the candidate who shows up. I've been showing up for years now. Whether it's women's rights, LGBTQ rights, climate strikes, voting rights, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to listen to the people in District 24. I had one supporter mention the fact that I'm the people's candidate in this race, and I have a proven track record when it counts as far as being there for people. I think most of the active Democrats I know have had their hair on fire about the emergency that we're in since about November 8th of 2016, the night that Hillary lost and Trump won the presidency. So it hasn't just been a one-year thing since the insurrection. Yes, that was a horrendous piece, but it was a continuation of what's been going on for 5 years now. So I want to be the people's candidate for District 24.
Thank you, Jan. Kathy Fragnoli.
Yeah, I think it was FDR that said you don't have to be cruel to be tough. And I think a person that is running for this position because of who we are up against needs to be pretty brave and tough. But I think I can do that by doing what I've been doing for 27 years, which is listening to everybody. I plan on building a big tent where everybody's opinions are welcome and everyone's points of view are welcome. It doesn't mean I'll agree with them, but I think everybody in a democracy should be included and listened to. So that's the approach I take with my business. That's the approach I would take in this position. And I think we're sorely missing in that regard because we have divided our country into two camps pretty much. And somebody or many people need to work on that and get it back where it belongs. United. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I can ask for a more detailed follow-up, really, what are the tactics you plan on employing to unseat the incumbent in this election? And we would start with Kathy on that one.
Sometimes people will tell you don't have to win, they just have to lose. And she came pretty close last time. The one thing people in our country will not put up with is hypocrisy. And what we're seeing from leadership in our district, as you mentioned before, is someone taking credit for something that they opposed, for someone who is letting the January 6th folks off the hook and doing just the opposite, which is backing our former president in saying that he's going to pardon folks like that. So I think just taking on those opinions publicly, you don't have to win as much as she will have to lose. And I think she's going to lose because we demand more of our leadership. We demand honesty. We're not getting it.
Well, thank you very much. Derrik?
Yeah, I think first, like I said previously, we need someone who's willing to put country over party, and Beth Van Duyne has proven that she's unable to do that. She's unable to represent all the people of this district. So, I want to hold her accountable for that because, the only way we get this country moving in the right direction is to find, bipartisan solutions. But we need people that are in the same reality, and unfortunately, she's not. Truth matters, integrity matters, and it's something that's lacking in a lot of our representatives. That are in Washington, D.C., the level of dysfunction there. Just in the military, it didn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. We all work together for that mission. We're all willing to sacrifice to accomplish that mission. I think there's more of that needed in Washington, D.C., because it seems all about being social media stars and elevating your own profile and not doing what's best for the country. So I'm going to hold her accountable for that. And the other thing, I think the business community, with this being a huge home to a lot of corporations and the DFW airports, show to them that she hasn't done anything for this district. She voted against a bipartisan infrastructure law. She voted against things that are helping small business owners. So she hasn't done anything for this district, and hold her accountable on that.
Thank you, Derrik. Jan, how do you plan to overturn the current incumbent?
Okay, I think there are kind of two different choices. One is to go after moderate voters who might be inclined to come almost to the center and be very moderate and vote for a Democrat. The other, I would say, is the way I would go at it. The chairman of the Dallas County Democratic Party, Christy Noble, gave me the numbers that she's been going around the county touting. There are 500,000 voters in Dallas County, registered voters who did not vote in 2020, just in Dallas County. Of those 500,000, they think that about 300,000 of those are likely Democrats. To put that in perspective, in 2018, Beto lost statewide by 200,000 votes. So I think our move is to find and encourage the people who are already registered to vote, tending to be Democratic, to get out and vote this time based on Beth Van Duyne's record and the corresponding alternate vision that we can offer.
Great, thank you very much. The next question is, Congressional District 24 is a wide, diverse, geographically diverse district. How would you represent the competing interests of the people in the district, especially when there's an urban versus rural divide. So we will start with Kathy on that question.
I think that in our country, we don't have as much of a divide as we think, because I think everyone basically has the same common needs. They probably want their government to be boring again, for one. Everyone's on the edge of their seats, like I was this morning, checking ERCOT to see if I was going to lose my power. But people in this country want to raise their families, do their jobs, and not have to worry about politicians screaming at each other, tearing down our institutions, our post office, our voting institutions. And so I think that's a common denominator among rural and urban voters. I think everybody believes that. And so when we find more common ground between people, that's what bridges the gap and work from there. And we can do that with the right messaging. And we need to do a better job at it than we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Derrik?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of universal things that really tie us together. So I don't know that the district is really, I mean, it is obviously different and different needs in different parts of the area, but, you know, fundamentally, we all want to provide a better future for our children. We all want a government that works. We all want an opportunity to succeed in this economy that has left behind far too many people. So I think, you know, fighting to build a more equitable economy, fighting to help working families, fighting to invest in education and infrastructure is something that's going to serve all the people of this district. But you know, as far as specific needs for different parts of the area, you know, I also want to have a close relationship with the, you know, the state and local leaders, with the federal government and the agencies as well. We need to have that partnership, and we need to all work together to really build a brighter future for this district. So that's something I'm committed to doing.
Thank you. Jan McDowell, would you like to take this one?
Sure. You mentioned rural, and I don't think I would kind of question that. I don't see any rural areas in District 24. It is urban, mostly suburban, pretty much across the board. I know people all across this district. One differentiation that I'd point out is religious differences. I was actually in a Facebook message group during the hostage situation in the synagogue in Colleyville. And some of the viewers today might not know Colleyville is part of District 24. You are in the same district with that. But in this message group, the wife of the rabbi that was inside that synagogue was in this group. And the group members were, you know, sending prayers and love and support. And I don't personally know the rabbi or his wife, but I certainly know plenty of people who do. I want to bring the people together, whether that's South Lake or the Park Cities, or the people in the Carrollton Farmers Branch School District who are on free and reduced lunches. I think it's just a case of bringing us all together, listening to all.
Thank you, Jan. The next question is, if elected, what committees would you like to serve on and why? And I think Derrik's up to take this question first.
You know, something I've always been passionate about is foreign affairs and veteran affairs as well, just as a military veteran who served abroad. So I would be very interested in being involved in that, especially with everything going on in Ukraine and Russia. I'm part of a national security think tank and have written numerous op-eds when I was in Chicago on topics. So it's something that's a passion of mine, but I think something that, you know, is critical for this area and something that both Colin Allred and Beth Van Dyne are on, or the Transportation Committee. I think that's huge. And with the role infrastructure, you know, has in this area and as rapidly as we're growing, I think that's important for this district. And there's also a subcommittee on growth with equity, so economic growth with equity. And that's something I'd like to really, you know, that's something I'm passionate about and really want to fight for working families to make sure everyone can succeed in this economy. And we start putting an impact on income inequality and making sure we have a robust middle class. Because fundamentally as a country, I think we're strongest when we have a robust middle class. So that's what I want to fight for.
Thank you, Derrik. Jan, what committees would you like to serve on?
I would love to be on the Ways and Means Committee. One reason, Katie Porter is on that, and she is my hero, Democrat out of California. I think taxing ideas, for our country to give more of a level playing field, I like to look at what I call income is income approach that doesn't give special rules and favors to capital gains income over ordinary income, and do like President Biden said, and value work over wealth. I would agree with, it would be great to be on the Transportation Committee as well, since that is such a driving force in District 24 between DFW Airport, Love Field, DART. It all revolves around our federal transportation policy. So Ways and Means and Transportation.
Great, thank you. Kathy?
I agree with both Jan and Derrik on the transportation. Because I worked at American for 12 years, I think I have a lot of background in all aspects of aviation, and they need all the help they can get. We have 2 airports here that are pretty important to our economy. And so that would interest me to be on transportation and build consensus on many items that we don't have now. Also on the Small Business Committee, I've had a small business since 1994. And some of the challenges as a government contractor doing business with the Veterans Administration and NASA and some other agencies is pretty much a nightmare for small businesses. So that would be something I would be interested in looking at. And even maybe education, in that I believe what we're missing in our education system is a look and training and conflict resolution. We're missing that, not a class, not available. Something like that would be so helpful in our communities, I think.
Thank you, Kathy. The next question we have from our audience is, as we've seen in the extreme weather today, climate change isn't an ongoing issue. What do you think the role of the federal government should be playing relative to climate change? And that question would start with Jan.
Okay, I think it's a basic feature of economics. If you get more of things that you subsidize, you get less of things that you tax. Therefore, I would be in favor of any kind of subsidies that we can give to businesses and individuals for doing things that are going to advance alternative fuel supplies and a switch over from fossil fuels to sustainable energy. That would be rebates for buying electric cars and for getting solar panels like I have on my house. Any of those kinds of things that, like I say, people and businesses can do to head us in the right direction with corresponding taxes on the use of the carbon tax and fossil fuels that are heading us in the wrong direction. So that would be my take on that.
Great. Thank you, Jan. Kathy, you're up.
Based on what's happened in the last 2 winters, I'd like to see more federal oversight on grids. So we have 3 grids, West, East, and Texas. And it appears that we're running it kind of like cowboys, you know, and the winterization is still not complete in Texas. And we're all worried today about meeting max levels on our sources, electrical sources. So I would like to see more oversight with that. As far as other issues, I think we're doing a really good job with public-private partnerships again, and that example would be Exxon and their investment in carbon capture and their contribution to the Paris Accord. So and our wind power, wind power is saving us this year. You can read all the articles about it this morning in Bloomberg and Forbes. So there's good news as well. Thank you.
You're back on mute.
So sorry, Derrik, would you like to answer that question?
Absolutely. I think the federal government has a massive role in battling climate change, and it has more than that. It has a more responsibility to do so. And I think not only is the federal government need to be active, but it's an international community. So that's why the withdrawal of the Trump administration from the Paris Accords, I think, was so tragic. it's a international world problem that we need to address and we need to battle. But also, you know, one organization I think that has done a good job is the Department of Defense. They've been leading really on climate change, identified it as a national security threat. A lot of our bases are right by the sea, and or the water and the oceans. I'm sorry, but one of my own roles in Iraq, what I was doing, I was looking for roadside bombs, which are the #1 killer troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, and those bombs were by and large targeting our slow-moving convoys that were transporting fuel. So I'm trying to make the argument to have bipartisan action on this critical emergency that we're facing is that not only will it help with climate change, and I accept the science, but it will also help protect our troops in the battlefield. If we have a less fuel dependent force, then ultimately we're going to have to expose ourselves to less risk on the battlefield. So the federal government should be involved, and they should be investing in research so that we can address this problem.
Great. Thank you very much. One of our participants just posted a news story that says the Republican Party declared the January 6th attack legitimate political discourse and has now censored Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger for investigating it. Would you like to comment on those? And I think we will be starting with Kathy on that.
Is anyone serving tequila right now? Because I can't think of anything more upsetting than that news. I saw it coming this morning in the headlines as the possibility. We're all business people on this call. The return on investment for hate speech is off the charts. And these folks are raising millions of dollars by dividing and angering America. And they just got the seal of approval from a party that knows better. They know better than to do this. I think it's all boiling down to raising money. And that's a terrible thing to sacrifice our sanity and our goodwill and our peace of mind for. So.
Thank you. Derrik, do you think this was legitimate political discourse?
You know, what I want voters to do, before we go to November and in the primaries, just rewatch the video of January 6th and tell me where you see just legitimate political discourse there, the violence that was seen that day. It was a country I didn't recognize. I stopped actually working that day, turned on the TV. It evoked a lot of the emotions for me that September 11th did that really drove me into the military. And now this is driving me into politics. Is just watching that. This is not the country I serve. This is not the country I believe we are. I believe we're better than January 6th, and we need to elect people that will enforce the rule of law and our free and fair elections. So just appalled to see that, and it's just so insane to me that we have someone like Liz Cheney being censured by the Republican Party for not being, I guess, Republican enough, or in Trump's. Not worshiping at Trump's altar there. So it's just the lifelong staunch conservative who I disagree with on so many issues that is now being censored for actually following her oath of the Constitution. They're in a bad spot as a party, and they're pushing the country in a bad direction. Then we need to, there's a lot on the ballot in 2022.
Thank you, Derrik. Thank you. Jan, thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, Patrick Moynihan comes to mind, that everybody's entitled to their own opinions, but not their own facts. I'm all for a free expression of opinions, but we saw the facts with our own eyes over and over again, and we know what happened on January 6th. We know it was not legitimate political discourse. Partisan politics are, in my mind, what I see on the Republican side, like specifically in Texas where Republicans are in charge, once they get elected, their whole focus is on getting elected again the next time. I would like to see people elected who win, and then they focus on doing good for the people that they were elected to serve before they start worrying about the next re-election. I would say the Republican Party at this point is off the rails. It's dangerous.
Thank you, Jan. And you brought up an interesting point, term limits. Thoughts on those, Kathy?
I think term limits are a good idea. I read articles by folks that served in the House and the Senate, and how a large portion of their time is spent in a basement somewhere with no windows, raising money. And I think we've lost our focus on what we're supposed to be doing when we're elected as leaders in the country. And I don't see it as raising money. I see it as understanding one another, trying to make peace on issues, find solutions that work. We know we can do that. But the more we spend divided raising money like it's a horse race, the more trouble we're getting ourselves into. So term limits, I think, would help because people wouldn't be so focused on running in their next election. They'd be more focused on doing the right thing.
Thank you. Derrik, thoughts on term limits?
I'm more on the fence on term limits. I think with our current system, when we have this gerrymandered districts and the Voting Rights Act that hasn't passed, term limits would be great to have these people get out of office that are more focused on themselves than serving the people. But to me, the priority is getting voting rights passed and ending partisan gerrymandering. Let's make these districts competitive, and then the voters can have their voice and say in the process. And if someone's not serving the needs of their constituents, then they can be voted out. My one concern, about term limits is just more around the influence that potentially lobbyists could have might even increase. They already have too much influence in Congress. And if there's a lot of people turnover, the lobbyists might have more of an opportunity to gain more and more power. So I guess if our system doesn't change and we continue to have these ridiculous districts, then term limits sound like a good thing. But, my focus is more on the voting rights, and let's get representatives actually responsible to the people of their districts.
Great. Thank you very much. Jan?
Yeah, I would go pretty much along the same lines as Derrik just said. I think in a perfect world, we would have fair districts that aren't set up to already pre-choose who's going to win the race. We'd have campaign finance laws that limit the influence of the money in the races. And then the voters can truly decide what candidate they want to represent them. And I think that if a member of Congress or some other position is legitimately doing a great job, it would be a shame to, have ding, your time's up, you're gone, if the voters would still like to have that person representing them. So let's fix the system to work the way it should, not need term limits, but under the situation that we're in now, term limits looks like a decent plan B.
Great, thank you. Another question from our audience is, how would you approach border security and how would you seek a sensible immigration solution? What would that look like? And I think we are up to Kathy starting. No, I'm sorry, Derrik. We start this one. Sorry about that. Derrik, you're up.
Sure. First and foremost, I'm for a secure border. I think the wall is just a tremendous waste of resources. Let's invest in electronic means more and more for monitoring. Let's, talk to Border Patrol down there, see what their needs are in the different areas of the border. But we also need a humane process. And we need to recognize that these are people that are fleeing very desperate situations to try to find a better life in America. And we should welcome them. We should provide more opportunities for legal immigration. I think one of the great tragedies of, I guess, many of the last administration is that they made immigrants, they demonized them, a lot of racist sort of attacks there. But, immigration has always been key to the state of Texas and our economy. And when Beth Van Dyne's talking about labor shortages and everything going on there, well, let's increase the visa program. And, everything that happened in Afghanistan as well, not related to the border, but the special immigrant visa program was completely gutted and stopped. So we've stopped a lot of encouraging legal immigration. So let's get the people that are going to be great Texans into this state, and let's invest in immigration to increase the amount of visas that are available.
Great, thank you very much, Jan.
I'm a big fan of facts, and I think we need to acknowledge the fact that we need immigrants in this country and set up a legal system that allows for that, sets a reasonable number of people that we truly need in many of the industries and businesses in our country. There are international laws regarding the rights of people to apply for asylum who are fleeing from hardships and persecution and danger in the countries that they're coming from. So we need to allow those people into the country, set up systems to treat them hospitably and welcome them into our country while their asylum processes are being pursued. We're a nation of immigrants. That's why I'm proud to be vice chairman of a group called Justice for Our Neighbors. They provide low or no cost help to immigrants who are seeking entry into our country, green cards, paths to citizenship. And I think that humane approach is the way to go.
Thank you, Jan. Kathy, thoughts on immigration?
Yeah, we have 10.5 million unfilled jobs in this country. We have 20,000 jobs in North Texas in construction that we're unable to fill, which is increasing housing costs. And Hispanic businesses contribute $19.8 billion to our economy in Texas. Trying to get into this country legally takes about 20 years. What we need to do, instead of building a wall, we need to build a plan. And that plan should be, I think, renewable work visas that last a year. We could get people on the tax rolls to discourage people from stealing Social Security numbers, which is happening now, and businesses, small businesses are helping them in Texas. We know that. And so with a enforcement and a plan to get in that makes sense, I think we solve a lot of our problems.
Great. Thank you very much. And that concludes our questioning. And we'd like to give the candidates each a chance to give a 1-minute summary. And the next person up, we're going to go in reverse order from when we started. So let's just start with Jan.
In the primary, Democratic candidates generally share similar stands on most major issues. It comes down to which candidate will put the voters first, ahead of the candidate's own interests. Voters in our area don't want to end up being represented by another Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema. Excuse me. They want someone who will speak up and stand up for progressive solutions to the very real problems we face. I'm the progressive candidate in this race. When I'm in Congress, you can count on me to vote in the best interests of my kids and grandkids and yours too. I won't be worried about keeping moderate donors happy to keep their donations flowing. If voters like what I'm able to do and want to re-elect me, that'll be great. But it will not be the North Star guiding my decisions. I'd love to earn your support and your vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan. Next up, we have Kathy for a closing statement.
Well, as I mentioned, I've been in business for 27 years, resolving conflict. I think that's a skill that we need right now in Congress. I think we need a different mindset. And I think that I can help in that regard. I know my way around an angry table because I've been doing it for almost 30 years. And I'm happy to do that for North Texas.
Great, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, my motto is it's about what we can be. And at my age, I know we can do better because I've seen it happen.
Thank you, and close us out, Derrik.
Well, thank you again, everyone, for tuning in and giving us the opportunity to tell about our vision for the district. You know, I've dedicated my life to serving my country, and felt a sense of duty to run. Just seeing the January 6th, seeing the direction that Donald Trump took the country, and seeing us slip into autocracy, which just so alarmed me. I never imagined our country would get to this point. I thought we were much stronger than that. The institutions of democracy were stronger. I'm committed to defending our democracy. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, and that's something I hold very dear. And as you see, a lot of the secretaries of state across the country that stood up against Trump, they've been replaced by Trump backers. So there's a lot on the line in 2022. There's a lot on the line in 2024. I think the best leaders have relied on hope and optimism and their vision for the future and try to unite people. And that's not what we're seeing in politics today. We're seeing divisive, fear-mongering politics from far too many of our representatives. And, they can't even call themselves leaders. And, for Beth Van Dyne, someone who voted to overturn a free and fair election, she's proven, time and time again that she's unfit to lead. So we need real change. We need a representative that's going to be responsive to the people of this district. And that's something I'm committed to doing. I'm committed to fighting for the people in this district. And, there's just too much at stake right now in the election in 2022. So we need to show up, have our voices be heard, and hold our representatives accountable.
Thank you, Derrik. And I want to thank all three candidates, Kathy Fragnoli, Derrik Gay, and Jan McDowell, for participating in this forum, because the North Dallas Chamber takes our elected officials seriously, and we spend a lot of time engaging with them and talking about the needs of North Dallas, in particular in North Texas. With that, I'd like to turn it back to Jeff, I guess, to close us out. And I don't know if you have any other comments or announcements, Jeff.
No, thank you again to all of our candidates for participating today. Thanks to our partners from the League of Women Voters and the North Texas Commission for joining us. This forum will be posted on our YouTube channel if anybody would like to watch it. And otherwise, we've got more candidates forums coming up next week, including on Wednesday in the Texas House District 114 Democratic Primary Forum. That'll be hosted at LJA Engineering. And if you're interested in signing up for that or any of our other forums, you can do so at ndcc.org. Thanks again to Lee Kleinman for his outstanding moderation of this event. Thanks to Barbara Larkin for her excellent timekeeping and to our ongoing partnership with League of Women Voters, the North Texas Commission. And thanks again to the three candidates for coming today and getting into this race. And we appreciate you being willing to answer the questions that we had today. With that, we will adjourn. I will demote all of the candidates, and I will promote a couple other people if anybody wants to stick around for some networking. But it's been a pleasure to see you all here today, and we'll look to see you all next week. Stay healthy and stay warm.
Thank you.
And I'm starting to promote some people who may be interested in talking afterwards. Chris Wallace, I just promoted you. I don't know if anybody wants to stick around. Ken Malcolmson, I just promoted you. But I think people are dropping off. So great to see you all. And don't forget to vote. Ken, there you go.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add? We're mostly closed.
No, it's all good. Thanks everyone for being here. That was a great forum, and Lee did a masterful job as expected. So timing was great. It's 1 o'clock right now, so couldn't be better. But thank you. And is Chris coming up, or is he already gone?
He's still there. I promoted him, but he has not. Looks like he may have declined the promotion.
Oh, okay.
Or he may not have seen it, but most of the attendees have dropped off, so I think we're probably going to shut it down.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds fair.
Yeah.
That was a great forum. Really well done.
Great job, everybody. We will see you all next week for our next one.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, everybody.
See you.